Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started. Okay, I'm excited to do this episode today. I think we did something similar to this in one of our very first few episodes. I'm going to call this What Would Kuba Do? Because I've had burning questions and issues that I want to be able to run past you. And I just want like your knee-jerk reactions and solutions.
Good grief. Okay. And I remember there was an episode titled that. And I remember, why did she title this? Because I don't feel like I had anything useful to offer in that episode. But if that's what you want to talk about, go right ahead.
I always find it fascinating to hear your perspective on things. So sometimes I will just kind of throw out like, hey, so there's this scenario, and it's nice to hear your perspective.
I feel like I'm one of your children, because you'll throw this out to your kids and go, what would y'all do? And I'm like, okay, here, Kuba, what would you do with this? Like, here's the normal response, but what do you think for an alternative? Go for it.
Yeah,
I'm ready. Go ahead.
Yeah, I have to gain multiple perspectives, and you're one of them. But I will say you often come up with more creative solutions than my children do. So there you go. Award of the day has been granted.
Great.
Okay,
more creative than your 11-year-old. I have arrived.
Okay, so one of the conversations that I've had recently was with a practice owner, and he is having some frustrations with an associate that ultimately ended up becoming a partner in the practice. And just, I think you'll have a lot of thoughts on this because we've talked about this a lot. But just, he became a partner and didn't necessarily ever acquire some of the leadership that the original owner was really expecting. So they work beautifully. They still work beautifully together. But I think it starts to become this feeling of, well, wait, what are you bringing to the table? And how can we make it more evenly matched? So I would say this is going to be hopefully helpful for anybody who's either got an associate on the team that you want to share more responsibility with, or a partner situation. But how would you, if you were in this situation, how would you tackle this?
My first question for the main doc would be, how have you communicated this? Because I feel like that's often the problem. Like, we think we've or a lot of times it's like, I mean, it's with our spouses too, right? It's like, you already know that I'm not okay with the laundry sitting there for, I'm not okay with, I'm on my last underwear and now I'm having to do laundry at 1 a.m.
Yeah.
Now you do that, but that's not okay with me. But, now we are equally sharing the laundry loads, and I would imagine you should know that that's not what I like. And poor hubby's going, huh?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, how could you not know that? And so that's kind of my question, is what has the original doc done to communicate what their expectation is? So I guess, can you answer that? Or
I would say that's where they have a lot of communication, but all of it's more like, hey, the original owning doc, hey, this is what we're doing. Partner doc going, okay. And so I think that it probably feels collaborative in a lot of ways, but ultimately the original, owning doc is feeling most of the...
Yeah, but to me, that's not communication.
Exactly.
And to me, that's, to be fair, I'm siding with the associate on this one, going, owner doc, you got to remember that that's what associate was brought in to do initially. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. So to them, yes, they're a partner, but that dynamic seemed to work, and you don't seem like you're necessarily upset about it, or that you were expecting more. And if you never said this is what you expect, so I don't think that that's fair. I think it needs to be I think most of us are uncomfortable doing that or saying that to go, hey, I need more from you. That is super awkward. But again, it depends on how you do it. But my fear would be, at what point are you going to snap? And now it's going to be a disaster. And of course, me having lived this through spouse and even associates to go, I need you to be the one to lead morning huddle on these days. I need you to be printing these reports and doing this. And I need your feedback. I need 2 options for what are we doing with this. Like starting off smaller things, but go ahead and lobbing them at them to see what they can do. But if you think you've communicated enough by just saying, hey, this is what we're doing, that's not fair to the associate because you haven't truly
tagged that person in and said, I need you to do this.
Yeah. And what is the expectation of that? And what is how much freedom do they have with that? And because you too, like, then are you going to turn it over to them? They're going to do it the way they thought was acceptable. And then now you're going to snap at them and go, well, that's not the right way to do this. So I think to me, that's where, for example, I mean, my associate right now is not a partner, but he has expressed interest in being a partner at some point. And I'm just like, I don't know that that's the right decision for me from a financial standpoint, from a, again, it's been my practice. It's been my blood, sweat, and tears that has built this thing up. And if I want the partnership to be successful, I've got to get over that and really see, like, what are you bringing to the practice? And if you partnered in without thinking about what they were going to bring in, then that's kind of shame on you. Like, why was it just a financial gain? Because if it was, then why are you complaining? But in your mind, if you thought that this person was going to help with more of the tasks, I guess I would go back to personalities too. What is this person's personality? What tasks are they going to be good at handling? What are you not good at handling? So that's another one, self-reflective, going, what do I not like? What am I not good at? And can this person balance that well? And if you're not willing to let go of some of that, maybe associates picked up on that. And it's like, we're getting along now. Why should I change?
Rock the boat.
Right. So for me, that's one thing now that this guy has said, I may want to partner in someday. I've had to stop and go, okay, what do I see you doing? Like, why would I give you half of my practice besides money? What are you going to want? And so I've kind of asked him that a few times. Like, what do you see yourself contributing here? Because honestly, I don't see like, from a financial, we've already know I'm not the financial person. Like, I go by my feel and what feels good in the practice, but my husband's a financial person. But the point is, I've got that in place already. So now if you're going to step in, is my husband letting go? Am I comfortable with that? Are we going to see eye to eye on that? Like, so it just, all of those things. But now if this person's already a partner in that, for you, owner, you need to kind of, maybe my thought would be, you need to figure out what it exactly is it that you want help with. And then have you communicated that clearly? And are you setting up the associate for failure if it's something that is not going to be something they're going to be good at? Are you letting go enough? So I've already, from my associate, there have been a few things that I'm like, okay, I'm tasking you with coming up with. The state board just sent another thing about the anesthesia checklist or the blah, 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 and do all of your forms have this in. I'm like, oh my God, I hate this. But associate's pretty good at stuff like that. So I'm like, here, it's you. And he's like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm like, I don't know. I mean, we both received the same email. So take it. I'm not taking this one. You take this one.
Exactly.
So how do I need to research this? I don't know, man. Go figure it out. Because that's what I would have to. It's not like somebody sent me a manual of this is what you need to do. As a practice owner, we're all trying to figure it out every day. Go figure it out.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I'm not giving you any guidelines. Like, go figure it out and bring back what you've found. And so I think I probably irritated him a little bit when I said that, because I was literally sending him out into the world. But I'm like, but I'm going to have to go out into the world and research. It's called Google. Like, that's what you young people are doing all the time. Like, go Google it, man. That's where I would start, But I think he did appreciate, on the other hand, that I had no restrictions on him. It was, I'm trusting you to do this. Yeah. you know me well enough, you know the practice well enough. If you're wanting to join this practice, there's a reason you want to join, because you like the culture, you like the foundational, we follow the rules. So take it and go. And what do you think we would like in our practice? Mm-hmm. And he did very well with it. And I think he enjoyed, maybe not enjoyed is not the right word, but I think he appreciated the trust. Yeah. And then I looked at it, and I didn't even really look at it. He's like, do you want to look at this? I was like, no, I mean, I'm assuming you have you, one of the things you like about this practice is that, we're covering your butt. Like, we're not going to get in trouble from the state board because we do follow the rules. So if you think that met the rule they just said, then I'm going to assume it's met the rule. I'm not going to read it. No, it's fine. I didn't want to read it to begin with. I didn't like any of it. I don't want to deal with it. So, right. Like magic, make it happen. Now, if I could tell that he was not an attention to detail person, or if he was not really the rules don't really matter, then then those are the tasks that I'm going to have to take and tell him, sorry, man, this is what you have to do. Mm-hmm. So really getting to know the person and kind of knowing what their strengths are, what you're willing to let go of. But I think ultimately, if I could sum it up in one word, it would be communication. Actually, no, I'm going to sum it up with the word expectation. I think like you are expecting this associate to do things different, and you're assuming that they're going, okay, now I'm going to, but I think that falls on the owner doc. Mm-hmm. I think.
Well, and expectation hits both, because it's like you formulating your own very clear expectations and then communicating those expectations to the other person, which is exactly what you did with your associate.
Yeah. I think it's funny that you said that these are two gentlemen, because it sounds like the wife in the thing. I'm picking on us females now, but I mean, that's the stereotype, right? Like, well, I assumed you would know that the kids need to be fed. They need a dinner every time. Just because I'm out tonight, suddenly you decided not to feed them? Well, it is what it is. Like, dude, you're on dinner tonight. You realize that. Like, I'm going out. I'm not taking care of dinner tonight. That's you. Oh, okay. Like, I mean, it's expectation, communication, whatever the word would be. Like, in our minds, we're going, how could you not see this? And I feel like that's what Owner Doc's doing right now is, come on, associate, you see all that I'm doing. But I don't think that's fair, because the associate doesn't really know where to step in, because the relationship they've had thus far has been yes sir, yes ma'am.
Right.
So.
Yeah. I love that. Expectation and then communication of that expectation. And I think clarity is knowing our expectations enough that we can clearly explain them, and then being very clear in that. And like you just talked about with your associate, there's got to be a trust factor there. You've got to be handing off the right expectations, because you know they can be successful with that. And then don't micromanage the process. Yeah.
And I think, for example, my associate would not do well at all with all the cheer and love for the staff, right? Like, he's just such a laid back guy, and he thinks that all the things that I do, we just did these boo baskets for Halloween, and I'm sure he's like, the hell are you doing? Like, why are we doing this? And I'm like, well, there's a method to my madness, but we're doing this for this reason. I just said to him, hey, I'm doing these buckets. Like, if you want your name on it as, like, this is from the two of us, then, and this is what I'm assuming it's going to cost, because I've already kind of figured out what I want to put in this. If you want to participate, let me know. If you don't, that's fine too.
Right.
If you do, I'm going to just tell you what to order. And he was like, thank God. Like, yes. Now he looks like a rose. His name's on it. He's contributed. But that's not going to be in his wheelhouse. He's really not going to enjoy that. And if I did task him with that, whatever he came up with, I'm sure I would be like, I hate this.
Yeah.
So, like, really trying to find the right task for him. And that worked out well. This is what I was going to say. My associate even, I'm sure you remember, beginning to midsummer, I was like, I really can't stand this guy.
Yeah.
You know? He's just on my every last nerve. And you and I talked about this, and I was like, this is me not, he's just being himself. He doesn't know that he's irritating me. And it's hard for me to tell him that he's irritating me and why, because it's uncomfortable and it's confrontational and but I finally did. Like, we went to lunch, and I tried to make you come to that lunch, and you're like, no, if he's ever
You tried to tag me in.
I did, because I was like, this is highly uncomfortable for me. But I did. I had a lunch with him, and I kind of expressed to him some of the things that were irritating me, and darned if not, now we're in October, but the last month or two, so it took about 2 months, but I realized I had to say more. And I think what I was doing was he would do something to irritate me, and I'm like, that irritated me, but I didn't want to say it. And then it would just build up and snowball. I think like we do with our other relationships, right? Yeah. And so now I think my thought process after that lunch was, and it was a very uncomfortable lunch, and he was not happy after the lunch, but I think he did ultimately. Like, I had to tell him and be like, dude, like, I'm here to help you succeed.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even things that were irritating me. It was just things like, there was one or two things that were irritating me, something that he had done that frustrated the team members, something that had frustrated, like, so he had no idea though that he was, because none of us were willing to tell him. He took it very well, but you could just tell he was sad after, and it was hard to watch him be sad. But I was like, dude, we could have easily not told you and set you up for failure.
Yeah.
But we're telling you from a place of love that this is, do what you will with this information. And he has made some improvements, and we made some, like for me, my take home was, okay, you know what? I need to meet with him monthly, just the two of us. Mm-hmm. Just the two of us go to lunch once a month, as painful as that seems like that could be. But this last lunch was fine. It was fine. And funny enough, because I didn't have a lot to pick on him for, because my second take home was, I need to just tell him when something bothers me. Because
right there in the moment,
and so that it doesn't build up. And I think a lot of it too, then it was me who was kind of going, he must hate me, he must this, he doesn't say good morning to me because he's just annoyed that I'm there, he does, like me being me and my feely self. And like, come to find, like, he's not a morning person, and he's not, like, stupid stuff. But it was just stuff like, I'm like, oh, he said this and he did that and then he did this, and all of that shows that he's, thinks we're all stupid. And like, he doesn't think we're stupid, but I just assumed he thought we were stupid. So anywho, I think my take home was, I'm going to meet with him once a month so we can just have out of the office, because I thought that was enough that we would do leader meetings. And no, it really needs to be me and him. I can't tag you in. I can't tag the hygienist in. It's got to be the two of us. I think my other takeaway was telling him things right as they were happening that were bothering me, so I could not like take it on my own rabbit trail, because I think I was doing some of that. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, well, I assumed like you did this. He's like, no, I didn't. I'm like, yeah, you did. No, I really didn't. You're cuckoo. Okay, I guess I am cuckoo. Sorry. Like, that's me, right? And whatever the third takeaway was, but we're in a much, I messaged you the other day. I was like, damned if we're not having so much fun when we're there now.
Yeah. And I love that as an example, because I didn't even think about before I asked you this question, how that would tie with my original question of this, partner to partner communication. Even though he's not your associate, is not your partner, it's required similar communication. And I think the steps that you've taken over these past few months, and then the subsequent steps he's taken because of the feedback that he's been given, has led to a very different relationship now. And that's really cool when you think about, because it comes back to, like you said, expectations. You formulated your own expectations, and then you communicated those very clearly to him. You didn't beat around the bush with all of it. And even though that was hard for him to hear, he responded by doing a better job of meeting your expectations.
So two stupid things. This is so stupid, but it was making such an impact, especially in the summer in a pedo office, like how busy we were. But he was really bad. We've got headsets, and like they would call for a doctor, and we've got signals of how the doctor's ready for you, or the patient's ready for the doctor. And he would not communicate on the headset. And I'm sitting next to him. So I'm like, did you just not hear it? Because there's lots of times where he's like so focused on typing a note that he doesn't hear it. He's like, huh? They called for us? I'm like, yeah, that's the second time they called. He's like, oh, I totally didn't hear that. Is your headset on? Yeah, it's on. Okay. So but I think there were equal number of times where in his mind, he's gone, yeah, I'm going to finish this note and then I'm going to get up to go check. Not realizing he hasn't said a word to anybody. So I'm sitting there going, do you want me to go? Does the staff need you? The staff is confused. So I had to call him out on this. And in general, he's our phlegmatic. He's not a big communicator. And I was like, dude, you've got to start. And he's like, why? I mean, I'm getting up to go. I was like, but nobody can see you. Nobody knows you're getting up to go. You know you're getting up to go, but nobody else does. And he thought that was kind of dumb. But I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. You need to reply every time. I know it seems like overkill, especially for a guy that doesn't communicate, but somebody sitting in a hygiene bay has no idea that you're standing up in the office walking towards them. How would they know that? And he's like, yeah, I guess you've got a point. So he improved on that. The other thing, he wasn't replying to texts. I took that very personally.
Yeah.
I took that very personally. I'm like, you people are born with the phone glued to your wrist. I know you respond, so you're not responding to me. I find that highly disrespectful. Would you be doing that to your other, because he works for, he works for me some and a different, I'm like, would you be doing that to the male one? He's probably replying to the male one. He's just, I'm like, what a stupid rabbit hole I'm taking myself on, right? So, but that to me was like, who the hell doesn't reply when your boss is texting you? Like, that just seems rude, stupid, selfish, like all of the above. Well, it turns out he did it to my hygienist. He did it to my other associate doc. And he's like, well, I don't get the big deal. Like, I responded to her earlier in the day and nothing had changed. Well, we're asking you because we don't know that nothing has changed. And so just for him, like, working on his communication, so he's made those improvements. And then I've also, if he didn't reply for some reason, I'm like, dude, I need a response, and not letting myself take that personally.
Right.
So, anyway, now we're having fun.
Yes.
We had a very busy day Friday because it was school holiday. We were 3 key people down who were all on vacation, and we sailed through the day, smooth sailing. Dare I say we had fun.
Yeah. Yeah. It goes to show you the importance of that clarity in communication and expectations. So.
Yes.
Love it. Okay, this one's similar, but different. So, and my client and I, when we were talking about this just a few days ago, we laughed and said this should really be on the podcast, but I'm going to have to be a little bit neutral with the details to protect, because it's a very specific situation. What would you do in the case that you do have this? So, you've experienced this before. So you've got an employee on your team that is oversharing. So this person my client has a person on the team that experiences a lot of highs and lows in life. Feels like kind of lots of health problems,
Are they a sanguine?
They are.
Okay. There's the oversharing right there. Yeah. Okay.
And they have overshared a lot with my client's office, and recently she's walked through some difficult things health-wise, and has kind of been on these highs and on these lows that is to a point now where it's kind of wearing the team out. But I think there's also this delicacy of her emotional state that she's in. And
you don't want her to feel like nobody cares about her.
Right. So it's like my client's in this position of trying to protect the team from going on these highs and lows with her, because it's not like they're like seeking her out to be like, hey, how are you? She is just thrusting this information on them. So it's not like they can get away from it, I guess is the best way to say it. And so right now he's trying to protect them, but then also not seem insensitive to what she's walking through as well. How would you handle that?
I think I would, that's tough, but I think I would start with maybe pulling that person in and kind of saying, hey, so tell me what's going on. I've heard a lot of different things, and maybe like the doctor themselves, has the doctor themselves heard a lot of this directly?
Yes.
Okay. So then at that point I might be punting to you, but if we didn't have a you, I think that does have to come from the doctor, honestly. And I probably would have you there next to me, potentially. I think it's also how well does the doctor and this person get along? Mm-hmm. But I think we've had this in the past, like you said, and it really was, I think the one that I can think of in the past was you having to talk to this person. And then more recently it was me who kind of just said, and I think, to me, I would just have to call it out and be like, hey, we've talked about personalities before, and you do know that we care about your situation, but who do you have outside of the office that's helping you navigate this? I think I would kind of want to do that.
That's a good way to say it. Yeah.
And just say, because again, I know you want to maintain your own professionalism in the office as well. And you want people to take you seriously. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times when you're telling all of us this, which is true, because I know this is 1,000% true, but for me to constantly having to hear that, well, you've got a lot of people who do care, and it's very taxing and weighing on us to go home with that. And whether it's a financial situation or a kid's situation or a health concern, like you said, like people like me, and I can think about 4 others on our team who are like consumed by this information, and we go home and it's like, but I don't want to take that to my family or affect my mood to affect my children because now I'm caught up in Susie's whatever. So I think correct me if I'm wrong, that's what we've done. Have kind of gone, been very blatantly blunt and said, hey, we love you, we worry about you, but we've also got to keep in mind we're a place of business. And I guess for me, this is where I can kind of hide behind some of the Scheduling Institute stuff, because they always talk about, there's the bubble. You're in a bubble. You can't control outside forces. But when you're in the office, or I guess liken it to Disney World. Like Disney's culture is you cannot come in and be upset that your car didn't start. You're there. You're supposed to deliver a certain level of service that nobody should know what's going on in your private life. Yeah. So I guess that to me, where I would be like, I think I'm not even sure that you're doing this, but you're transferring all your weight onto the team, and it's really starting to affect the dynamic because everybody cares about you, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that don't share, and you share quite a bit. Yeah. And so you don't want to become the outlier. And so that, I don't know. That may upset them. I'm sure it will, but I think most people, if you're presenting it that way of going, you don't want to be the outlier. Yeah. And that you are cared for, but there's a time and a place. And yes, we're your work family, but at the same time, we've all got to be able to focus on patient care. That's why we're here. Yeah. So who are your people outside the office that you think you could vent to?
I think that's a great point, because to me, that gives you 2 key points that are very caring. Number 1 is we care so much that when you share all this information, it kind of weighs us down, and we take that home with us, and that's not good. So it's almost like, rather than we don't want to hear it, please stop talking about it. It's done from a place of, we are a work family and we care. Sometimes we can care maybe too much.
And that's where I've had to even tell them, like we've had to have all these conversations to see how we can support you. And like, we've got one, person who's our very, what's the person? The alpha. Yeah. And so she comes across as but she cares so much, and it really weighs her. They have no idea the number of conversations we have after where she's like, how can we support this person? And so I mention it to them. I'm like, honestly, like and they're like, what? The alpha, the mean person cares about me? I'm like, she cares so much about you. She's taking this home trying to go, how can I give them time off? How can I take this task away from them? How can I, she's the one trying to troubleshoot all that. And they have no idea. Right. And so I'll share some of those things with them too, going, okay, apparently you said this and you said it to so-and-so. Well, now that so-and-so is trying to figure out how she can not, pick up her kids from school so that she can be there to cover your shift. And that person doesn't even realize. So I'm not just saying that we're care so much about you that we're taking home. Like, my staff really does take this stuff home, and they're trying to make concessions in their own lives. I'm like, but that's not fair to her. Like, she should be able to go get her kids. Yeah. But now she's trying to troubleshoot for you because you're putting a lot on her, and I don't think you realize that's what you're doing.
Exactly. And I like communicating it from that way, because it's a very caring way to point out that somebody is oversharing or burdening the team. Because I think a lot of times the people that are oversharing aren't thinking about the burden that they've cast out on everybody.
Well, and that's why I asked Sanguine. I don't think they have any clue. Yeah. Because usually it's the Sanguines that are the feelers, that are the ones who are, they're just sharing because they think that that's normal.
What they need to do.
Yeah.
And then I like also your second takeaway from that, which is challenging them. It's not just like, hey, don't talk about it here, but you've communicated the downside to how much they're sharing. who do you have outside of here? So it's kind of putting it back on them to, it's not just stop sharing this information and keep it to yourself. It's challenging them to kind of, let's reorient and figure out who you might be able to share this stuff with outside of the office. So you're almost pointing them in a certain direction. Like, let's not look internally anymore. Let's kind of think outside. Who do you have outside the office?
I think that's one thing when we've got our Dr. Franklin, like our counselor that we pay for them, where I'm like, have you talked with her? Like, that's why we have this benefit for you.
I love that. Yep.
So I know a lot of offices don't have that, but if you do, like, that's the other reason. Because then that way I'm giving you 2 avenues.
Yeah.
Quit bogging us all down. We all have. I think that's the thing that they don't realize either. We all have our own stuff at home. It's not just you. It's not just you who has health issues or financial issues. Everybody does, but notice nobody else is talking about it.
Yeah.
And so but I don't think, like, the typical person I can think of in our office that we've had this with, it's always been a sanguine, and they're always, they're just the people who are people.
Yeah.
So they're not realizing any different. Well, I don't think it's ever occurred to them that everybody else is having these, but nobody talks about it.
Yeah.
Because they keep it private. Yeah. Because their personalities are different. And so I think this, to me, kind of gently pointing that out, for one. For two, going, who do you have outside the office? Are you a church goer? Do you go to the mosque? Do you go to the temple? Who are your people that
Where's
can
your
help
support
you?
system?
Yeah. And if you don't have one, I guess if they don't have one, I don't know what to say at that point. But hopefully then they at least filter themselves a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then when I've got this counselor, then that's another avenue. So to me, it's like a 2-prong, like, this should not be your point of dumping.
Exactly. Yeah. I think, well, and again, I didn't even think about that. That's such a good point, that you've got that resource. You pay for a counselor for your team, which I love. But for those that don't have that, do you have a counselor that you could, maybe you got a list of counselors, like, hey, if you don't know where to go, I do have, these are people that I personally know. Feel free to reach out to them, so that you're, again, pointing them in a direction if they don't have a good support system in place. So I like that.
I think I might even, which, I don't know that I've ever done this, but in that case, if I didn't have that, I'm more than happy to. Would it help if you and I went, to lunch once a month, and you can just vent to me? Now, I'm not going to have any solutions for you, but if it's a venting thing, if you don't have anybody else to vent to, I'm more than happy to, but it's got to be outside of work. It cannot be bogging me down when I'm trying to take care of patient care, and I've got to pay all of y'all's paychecks, so I've got to be able to focus.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good solution too, where that way it points it to a certain place and time. You will get this vent session, but it's going to be this date, this time, and the goal would be that there's less shared amongst the team. So almost like you're the one taking the bullet for the team in that particular case.
We had one recently that was funny, but it was kind of not funny. But we were running emergency training in the office. Did I talk about this already? Mm-mm. Okay, so we were and we had the Narcan vial that we were pretending to have to give an oversedated patient. And I started just saying, because I wasn't leading it, I was listening on the periphery. My associate was leading it. And I said something like, hey guys, apparently Narcan is now going to be available over the counter. And before I could finish my sentence, one of our team members said, oh, that's awesome. Like, that's so needed, or I need that, or whatever it is she said. And she's one of our sanguines who, likes to talk and likes to get to know people and all of that. And my point of saying it was, right now we're literally using this Narcan vial, but it may not be a vial anymore. Maybe it's going to be like an EpiPen. Maybe it's going to be like, who knows what it's going to be.
Right.
Maybe somebody knows. I don't know yet. But as soon as we start like needing to reorder our Narcan, it may not look like this.
Right.
That's all I was trying to point out. Well, a lot of the team's takeaway, because I had several people come to me after that meeting, and they were like, why would she need Narcan? Like, there's only one reason you would need Narcan. It's because you overdose.
Yeah.
So is she doing drugs? Is she on drugs? Is that why she's missed some days? Is that why she overshares? Like, that's the perception that people in the office had. I know. And you're cringing right now. And I was just like, oh my God, I didn't take it that way. But I could see how the team is like, why? Oh, and then I think she had even said, like, I maybe would have said, I think it was me in the training. I was like, dude, what are you saying? Like, what do you need Narcan for? Like something, but I was being funny. I didn't really realize. And she goes, no, for my daughter. well, her daughter has certain health things, which I'm just like, you share that stuff, but I think the team took it as you've got drug addicts in your home.
Right.
How can you be coming to a pediatric office to come work? Like, how do we know you're not affected?
Yeah.
I never thought that because she and I talk a lot. I know that that's not the case, but I don't think in that moment she filtered herself and realized that. So I had to pull her aside then. And I was like, by the way, you know that this is how this came across. And she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it just made you look less professional. She's like, I had no idea. I just said what was in my mind because I was like, I know, but that's part of the sharing. And now you've got some of the team thinking you've got drugs around and we need to stay away from you. You've got other team members thinking you're not very professional. You've got other team members. And so I'm just friendly reminder, just like, especially with new people on the team.
Control those responses or that sharing.
And they're gonna, you don't want to lose respect over something like that.
Yeah.
So, and she, I was like, either she's going to be really mad at me right now or but she was like, no, I appreciate that you said that because I had no idea that's how I came across.
Right.
So anyway, I don't know, sticky situation, but I think, again, just kind of stating it as it is and going.
Yeah, being clear with it, being still caring in that, but also not shying away from the conversation. Because if we don't have that conversation, the long-term effects are, like with your individual on your team, that we lose respect for her over time if we are making some assumptions about her lifestyle. With my client, with the one lady, she could continue to wear the team out, and then he's got workplace dissatisfaction because of that. So it's not worth not addressing the situation.
I would bet chances are she has no idea she's oversharing.
Yeah. I bet you're right. Okay. Thank you so much.
That's it? I'm done? Okay.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.